reported U.S. plan to mislead both sides in the Iran-Iraq war.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, tag.
New clues on why morning is the danger time for heart attacks. OPEC in disarray, what will that mean to oil prices?
Plus the celebrations in 2 cities heading toward the Super Bowl. This is the CBS Morning News. Good morning. I'm Forrest Sawyer.
And I'm Faith Daniels. It's Monday, January 12th.
Terry Waite still thinks he has a chance. The Anglican Church envoy is returning to Beirut this morning. He will try again to gain the release of foreigners kidnapped by terrorists. Waite postponed his mission until today because his safety in Beirut could not be guaranteed. He said last year that the publicity surrounding U.S. arms sales to Iran had jeopardized the release of more hostages. There are several new developments this morning concerning the U.S. and Iran and Iraq, both on the war front and the home front. Today's New York Times reports that the U.S. gave doctored intelligence data to both Iran and Iraq, the reported motive to keep either side from winning. The Washington Post reports that it was Republican Senator David Durenberger's idea to delete certain items in the Senate Intelligence Committee's report, items that reportedly faulted the White House. And the ranking Republican on the new Senate panel, Senator William Cohen, says the president is the victim of bad advice.
While the political battles intensify, so does the Gulf War itself. Iranian missiles pounded 2 key Iraqi cities this morning, and Iraq answered with airstrikes. Both sides report heavy casualties. In Washington, President Reagan's Iranian policy continues to draw fire. The president will try to keep out of range, at least for a couple of days. Though Mr. Reagan will be back at his desk today, his doctors want him to take it easy following prostate surgery.
Arms control is just one issue before the Reagan administration as it prepares to deal with a new Democratic-controlled Congress. Bill Plante is standing by live at the White House now. Bill, clearly the White House has got its work cut out for it in this new year. Would you say that the president is taking a defensive posture moving into it?
Good morning, Forrest. The Reagan White House and the president himself are certainly working hard to move from a defensive to an offensive posture. Now, Principal Deputy Press Secretary Larry Speaks is due to leave here in less than 3 weeks, so they're going to have to find someone new to deal with the press on a day-to-day basis, and CBS News has been told that they have selected a new man for the job. Marlin Fitzwater, who is now the Vice President's Press Secretary, is expected to be named to the position of spokesman for the White House, possibly as early as today. In the face of what are likely to be continuing stories about exactly how the Iran arms deal was handled, where the money went, whether the U.S. was a leader or a gullible follower in the deal, it'll be hard for the White House to focus attention on the president's budget or his State of the Union message. Nonetheless, that won't keep them from trying.
Bill, are they narrowing down what goals they're going to try to achieve in these last 2 years?
There's no particular focus yet on anything except broad goals, budget reform, a number of things, increased productivity, which has as a background all of America's trade problems. There are very few specific goals, as specific, say, as tax reform last year.
White House correspondent Bill Plante. Thank you, Bill. On Capitol Hill, the Democrats are flexing their new muscle. They are controlling both houses for the first time in 6 years. Phil Jones is standing by on the Hill this morning. He has more on the congressional agenda. Good morning to you, Phil.
Good morning.
How do you think Ronald Reagan is going to fare on the Hill?
Well, it just depends on how much he is willing to cooperate and compromise. The days of him deciding down there what his agenda is and what the country's agenda is without working with the other party, those days are all over now that the Democrats control the Senate as well as the House. I think that if he comes up here and is willing to work with them on the budget and what to do about the deficit, to bring them in more on foreign policy issues before you have big controversies like the Iran situation, then I think he will get along very well. And I think the Democrats still respect him and in some ways even fear him as a very popular man around the country.
Phil, I know you've heard it pointed out that on Congress, with all the attention that's being paid to the Iran-Contra deal that's going on, with all the investigations that are focusing on that, the nation's business has actually been paralyzed somewhat. Do you buy that?
Well, I think in the early days it has. Of course, it all came up last year when the 99th Congress had adjourned and gone home, and they didn't have anything else to do, and so they spent their time on this instead of going on their holidays. Now, of course, as you were starting the 100th Congress, they have more things to look at. And once they get going, I think you're going to hear a lot about Iran. It's going to be in all the headlines and all the TV shows. However, at the same time that's going on, there are going to be a lot of other things happening here. You're going to have hearings going on. as to what the foreign policy should be with Iran. You're going to have Senator Sam Nunn, who will be the new chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, who will be involved in looking at what the Pentagon ought to do. In fact, Caspar Weinberger will be up here today. So a lot of other things will be happening.
Capitol Hill correspondent Phil Jones. Thank you, Phil.
Continuing now, Super Bowl 21 is 2 Sundays away, and it's the Denver Broncos and the New York Giants. New York shut out the Washington Redskins yesterday for the NFC title. Lionel Manuel making it 10-0 with a touchdown catch in the second quarter. Final score was 17-0, and this is one cold shower that felt good for Giant coach Bill Parcells. They're feeling pretty good in Denver, too, wearing the AFC crown. Bob McNamara reports.
To win it in overtime. Ball is down. Carlos's kick is on the way, and it is good! The Denver Broncos have come from behind to win it in overtime.
In Denver, the celebrating was no less than expected. The chaos in the sports bars, the caravans here and there in the streets. But the biggest display was last night. At Denver's airport, thousands gathered for the Broncos' homecoming, blocking streets, slowing emergency vehicles, and stopping traffic. The crush against airport security fences had police pulling small boys to safety, and there were several arrests. Finally, delayed by false bomb threats on their chartered jet before leaving Cleveland, the Broncos arrived to the cheers of about 15,000 fans. Cleveland seemed like history, with more work to be done.
We still got one more to go. We haven't gotten what we want yet.
I've been to the Super Bowl one time, and we didn't win it. But this time, we're going to do you proud.
It was left to quarterback John Elway to write Denver's Monday morning headline.
Wow!
Denver went to Cleveland as the underdogs. They'll go to the Super Bowl that way, too. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Denver.
Well, there may be a break in a major labor dispute. Ken Prewitt is joining us now. He's got details on that. Good morning, Ken.
Forrest, the longest steelworkers strike in American history could be over soon. The Steelworkers Union met through the weekend with USX Corporation, formerly U.S. Steel. Sources say substantial progress has been made. The new contract would reportedly give USX wage and benefit concessions similar to those won by Bethlehem Steel. 22,000 steel workers have been on strike at USX. This is the 165th day. The American dollar is trading lower overseas this morning. Currency traders have been selling dollars and buying West German marks recently. And in an attempt to stabilize exchange rates, European finance ministers have agreed to raise the value of the Deutschmark, the Dutch guilder, and the currencies of Belgium and Luxembourg. In London, gold is off to a strong start for the week. At the morning fixing, it's up $5 an ounce from Friday's New York close at $409.90. Silver is up 3 cents at $5.53. The only thing certain is that the stock market won't go up every day this year. That was the reaction from Byron Ween, director of U.S. investment strategy at Morgan Stanley, as the Dow Jones Industrial Average hit its 5th consecutive record high. The market is up to 2005 heading into this morning's trading. One of the strongest starts for the market in decades, Faith.
All right, thanks very much, Ken. From Business News, we go to weather news this morning. A day for digging out in May. Nearly 20 inches of snow fell yesterday in Bangor, with a foot falling in Portland. Many of the state's roads are still covered. Be careful driving, as strong winds will blow the snow around. Elsewhere around the country, a mostly nice day for January. Sunny skies are expected from the Carolina coast to the Rockies. The only rain to dampen the picture will be falling across the northwest coastline and in portions of southern Texas. It's now 9 minutes after the hour.
This is the TV8 Morning News. Here's Allison Gilman.
Good morning. Under mostly clear skies, it's 31 degrees in Des Moines at this hour. At 10 o'clock this morning, the gavel will fall and Iowa's 72nd Legislative General Assembly will convene here in Des Moines. Lawmakers spent last week telling Iowans what their top priorities will be this session. And topping the list are increased education spending, specifically for teacher salaries, and cleaning up state water supplies. But with the state's economy so tight, there's not a lot of extra money around to pay for those priorities. So lawmakers plan to revamp the state income tax to raise an estimated $170 million. They'll also consider legalizing riverboat gambling in the state. Ottumwa Mayor Jerry Parker has vetoed a pay raise for that city's police force, saying the city can't afford it. Parker says the proposed pay increase would cost $36,000. But the city's police chief says the salary package wouldn't cost the city more money until the last year of a proposed 3-year package. Kidnapping charges will be filed today against a Minneapolis man accused of abducting his 4 children from a Minneapolis duplex and bringing them to Iowa over the weekend. Authorities say 24-year-old Robert Goebel, reportedly separated from his wife, took the children, aged 10 months to 5 years, on Saturday. Police in both Minnesota and Iowa began search efforts Saturday afternoon and found the man in Clear Lake. The children were returned unharmed to their mother. I'll have the weather forecast right after this.
High technology at discount prices. World Radio made that promise in 1935, and year after year for 52 years, that's exactly what it's been. The right products at the right price.
World Radio's 52nd anniversary sale is the one you don't want to miss. Our entire reputation is on the line during the sale, so the savings are spectacular. We're out to prove that we are the right store.
Save over $50 on a Panasonic VCR with wireless remote, only $249. World Radio, the right store.
That snow and ice making the roads and sidewalks so treacherous won't be around long, judging by today's weather forecast. Today's forecast calls for mostly sunny skies with mild conditions and highs around between 45 and 50 degrees. Welcome back, nice weather. And tonight it should be fair and mild with lows in the lower 30s. Then tomorrow our forecast calls for more of the same, and I don't think anyone would complain about that. Partly sunny skies, mild weather for mid-January in Iowa. Highs around 50 degrees. Our temperature at this hour in Des Moines, 31 degrees, with winds out of the northwest at 8 miles an hour. Our relative humidity stands at 65%. The barometric pressure is almost 30 inches and rising. And I'll be back with more local news and a weather update in about 10 minutes. Stay with us.
We have an important new health study for you this morning. It's a study that could save your life if you're prone to having a heart attack. Medical correspondent Dr. Bob Arnot is here with details. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Faith, and nice to have you back.
Thank you.
When the heart stops abruptly, it's defined as sudden cardiac death. 1 out of every 6 Americans dies of sudden cardiac death, more than any other single disease. In today's issue of the Journal Circulation, doctors at Harvard Medical School's Brigham and Women's Hospital report that sudden death is more likely to happen between the hours of 7 and 11 a.m.
The lead author of today's study helped save the life of a Soviet journalist whose heart stopped suddenly at Nobel Prize ceremonies in Oslo in 1985. The attack occurred in the morning.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10.
Precisely what it is about the morning that makes people with heart disease more vulnerable to sudden death puzzles doctors. But scientists do know it's linked to what are called circadian rhythms. Those are biological rhythms that gear the body up for the day ahead or slow it down for sleep in the evening. Doctors think there's something in the cascade of events the body is put through in the morning that leads to sudden death.
Early in the morning, your body is trying to respond to the challenge, really, of waking up. And that may seem trivial, but it's one of the most profound challenges which the body faces each day.
Dr. Seisler measures all the major body functions in his laboratory for the study of circadian rhythms.
First of all, your heart rate jumps, your blood pressure jumps, blood pools in the legs. You lose about a pint or two of blood in the legs, and the heart is trying to maintain circulation of the blood to the brain in order to keep you from fainting.
I was running backwards with my racket up and looking up at the ball.
Fred Curtis's heart stopped during a morning tennis match on April 17, 1982. He survived and remains a self-described Type A personality whose morning schedule is tightly packed.
The guys that I work with always referred to me as a person that stuffs time, and I would be sitting there cooling off, having breakfast, figuring that I could do both of those things at the same time, and then in order to get in and get a shower, get cleaned up, and leave by 7:30.
Once doctors know exactly what it is about the trauma of morning that causes sudden death, they'll be able to protect potential victims. Some doctors have already made changes in treatment.
Several doctors have told me that they now recommend that their patients with heart disease take their medication at night, long-acting medication at night, so that when they wake up in the morning, they have some protection.
Other doctors suggest that their patients with coronary heart disease just try and take it easy when they get up in the morning.
More research is needed to completely understand the reason why more coronary deaths take place in the morning. But if you think just getting up later will help, it won't. You suffer the same challenge getting up at 6 a.m. as you would at noon.
It's certainly going to make me get up a lot more slowly now and think about it.
And welcome back, Forrest.
Thank you, sir. We have more news coming up, plus Ken Prewitt having a look ahead at the future of the OPEC oil cartel.
I always pictured myself as a doctor, but I never pictured myself sleeping on a waterbed. Then my husband took me to Big Sur waterbeds. Now I won't sleep on anything else.
Distinctive and dramatic is Big Sur's Horizon Oak Wall Group. A large beveled glass mirror and graceful twin pier cabinets frame the bookcase headboard. Yours now for $11.99.
It's just what the doctor ordered.
Big Sur Waterbeds, America's largest. 3715 Merle Hay Road at Douglas in Des Moines.
There's a new look to late nights on TV8. Right after the news, drop in for 30 minutes of non-stop fun with The Jeffersons. Then at 11, it's the all-new Ask Dr. Ruth. Special guests join Dr. Ruth Westheimer before a live audience in a spontaneous discussion of modern relationships. And at 11:30, David Brenner is back on Nightlife. Don't miss David, along with musical director Billy Preston, for an unpredictable half hour with top show business stars. Be a part of it all. The new late night look on TV8.
Smoking ain't hip, in fact it's a drag. Sucking it in's just not my bag. Smoky clothes I can do without. Whatever you're into, smoking's out. Flicking off ashes, looking like a fool. Everybody knows that smoking ain't cool, no, no, no. Look around, there's no doubt. Whatever you're into, smoking's out.
Here's another look at this morning's top stories. Church envoy Terry Waite is on a new mission to try to free the Beirut hostages. Word of a U.S. disinformation campaign aimed at Iran and Iraq. And we're going to tell you this morning where gas prices are headed.
It's back to work for President Reagan today, but he's under orders to take it easy so soon after his surgery. That won't be easy. The Iran arms Contra cash problems loom. The ranking Republican on the new Senate panel says Mr. Reagan must accept the blame.
The President turned to amateurs for his advice on a major foreign policy initiative rather than listening to the sound and seasoned voices of the experts. And that's where I think the President made his mistake.
In another development, new word today on America's underground role in the Iran-Iraq war. The New York Times reports that the U.S. supplied both sides with doctored intelligence data, apparently to keep either side from getting the upper hand.
Well, if you drive to work, here's something I think you'll be interested in. Crude oil prices are going up, reaching $18.75 a barrel this morning. Since the OPEC agreement in December, crude oil is up nearly 20%. Now, you can guess what that means for gasoline prices down the road. Our business correspondent, Ken Prewitt, has a report.
1986 was a dream for drivers and a nightmare for OPEC.
OPEC went through an experiment in 1986. They decided to raise production and lower prices to move more oil into the market. That experiment was an absolute disaster.
A disaster for OPEC in the oil-producing parts of the U.S. But for the rest of the country, the oil glut meant a return to fat cars and good times. As oil inventories rose, gasoline prices fell more than 35 cents a gallon, the lowest they've been since 1979. But what's ahead in 1987? The bad news for consumers is that OPEC finally reached agreement on a plan to raise prices by cutting production. The good news is not everyone thinks the agreement will hold.
My guess would be that ultimately greed will prevail. I think there's going to be cheating, and I think there's going to be renewed pressure, downward pressure on the price of oil.
More good news for consumers, there's still a glut.
We are still running with very significant excess capacity and will be for the next 2 or 3, maybe 4 years.
But good news can turn into bad news down the road. When there's too much oil and the price is too low, American oil companies leave it in the ground until the price goes back up.
Production in other parts of the world is leveled off, or in the case of the United States, it's declining. U.S. production is about 6% below a year ago.
Texaco, Amoco, and Standard Oil have all sharply reduced their budgets for exploration. Atlantic Richfield cut its exploration budget in half. And the number of U.S. drilling rigs in operation has fallen to the lowest level since World War II. Less drilling means the glut will dry up faster. But most experts believe 1987 won't bring 1973's gas lines. In fact, they're predicting a rise of only a few cents a gallon this year. The real trouble, they say, will start in the 1990s.
We probably have got another year, maybe two, of low prices, but that's the end of it for the rest of this century.
And what's beyond this century? Something even more frightening.
Basic problem is the United States is beginning to run out of oil and gas. And while price is important when you've got a lot of it, doesn't matter very much if you haven't got very much.
Forrest, the largest oil field ever discovered in North America, Prudhoe Bay in Alaska, is expected to start declining in production late this year or early next year. We're going to take a look at that in a later report.
Now, do you think we should stay away from gas-guzzling cars now?
Well, Alan Greenspan, who's one of America's leading economists, says that depends on how long you're going to keep it. If you're going to keep it for a couple of years, you can buy a gas guzzler. If you're planning to keep it into the 1990s, maybe you want to think small.
Thanks, Ken.
Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger heads to Capitol Hill today. He's set to defend his proposed $312 billion defense budget before the Senate Armed Services Committee. The committee is now controlled by Democrats. Some of its members are already attacking Weinberger's request for a nearly 8% boost in defense spending over last year.
At Cape Canaveral, Florida, more arrests of anti-nuclear protesters, and security at the sprawling Air Force station there is being beefed up as demonstrators try to crawl under fences or wade ashore to protest a Trident missile test. 15 people arrested and jailed on trespassing charges. More arrests are expected as protesters gather for a weekend rally. In a small English town near Salisbury, nuclear activists say they are convinced that a military truck that overturned this weekend was carrying nuclear weapons. The government refuses to say, but a defense spokesman claims the accident never posed a risk to the public. Tomorrow in the Morning News, Robert Krulwich will tell you how to open your very own Swiss bank account.
The Gold Buffet has served over 10 million people since 1958. Now, the Winterset Gold Buffet's crab legs are on their famous buffet on Sunday and Monday nights. Then, Thursday and Fridays, enjoy breaded shrimp and hot spice shrimp. All you can eat. Kids, $1 and up. Plus, there's 40 salads and 10 meats. And for family fun, bring the kids for free bowling. Also, private parties, 10 to 400.
There's no buffet like the Gold Buffet. Well known from coast to coast, the Gold Buffet.
On my show, we speak very explicitly.
There's only one Dr. Ruth.
You tell him to keep his mouth shut until he has a relationship, all right?
Yeah, I would rather kill him than leave him.
Not me. I'm too short for that. You would be in trouble with me, you know why?
You want to get married? You know.
No, I'm married.
Well, let's switch. And anyway,
For the truth, ask Dr. Ruth.
Ask Dr. Ruth, weeknights at 11, right after The Jeffersons on TV8.
Hello, Dallas.
Well, hi, Chicago.
Sounds a little crazy, but we wanted to see if the new fiber optic phone line in the system being built by U.S. Sprint really was so incredibly quiet that you could actually hear a pin drop. You got it?
Loud and clear. That was a pin?
So call now, find out more, and save with U.S. Sprint, where every fiber optic call sounds like you're right next door.
This man is missing nearly 1/2 of the fiber he should have every day. He's not the only one. The National Cancer Institute states that most Americans have diets lacking adequate fiber. Fortunately, just one serving of Kellogg's All-Bran has the amount of fiber needed to make up what the average person is missing each day. Kellogg's All-Bran. It can make all the difference.
This is the TV8 Morning News. Here's Allison Gilman.
Good morning. Under clear skies, we have 31 degrees in Des Moines. The drop in Iowa's rural crime rate during the 1980s can be directly tied to the state's slumping farm economy, according to a local sociologist. First, the new statistics. Thefts and burglaries dropped 29% in rural Iowa areas since 1980. Violent crime is down another 15% in rural Iowa, and the number of murders in those areas has declined every year since 1980. However, violent crime is up 5% during that time when the entire state is figured into the equation. One Drake sociologist says when times are bad, people stick together and crime rates fall. However, law enforcement officials say because Iowa's population is down, so is its crime rate. And that's because Iowa's losing its younger men, the group that officials say most often commit those crimes. At 10 o'clock this morning, the gavel will fall, and Iowa's 72nd Legislative General Assembly will convene here in Des Moines. Lawmakers spent last week telling Iowans what their top priorities will be this session, and topping the list are increased education spending, specifically for teacher salaries, and cleaning up state water supplies. But with the state's economy so tight, there's not a lot of extra money around to pay for those priorities. So lawmakers plan to revamp the state income tax to raise an estimated $170 million. They'll also reconsider legalized riverboat gambling in the state. Charges have been dismissed against a Dubuque man whose New Year's Eve argument with his wife caused him to set fire to her clothing, including 2 mink coats. 42-year-old Henry Hoosman was accused of violating the city's open burning law when he set fire to the clothes in a vacant lot on New Year's Day. Hoosman defended his actions, saying the clothes were outdated and that he'd paid for them, so he had a right to burn them. A Dubuque judge dismissed the charge, but ordered Hoosman to pay $20 in court costs. And I bet his wife won't let him off that easy. I'll be back with a weather forecast right after this.
This week on Midday.
A Des Moines man talks about his multicultural newspaper, The Communicator.
Some ISU students are acting up for the MTA. We'll learn more, and we'll find out how a mother and daughter were reunited through a runaway service.
The jet-powered monster truck, the Silver Bullet, highlights the auto show. We'll take you there, and to Drake University, where we'll join a celebration for Martin Luther King's birthday.
We'll take you to the Women's Club art exhibit, and a doctor talks about a medical problem most people won't discuss.
All of this and more on Midday.
Today's forecast calls for mostly cloudy skies with mild conditions and highs between 45 and 50 degrees. Welcome back, nice weather. Tonight it should be fair and mild with lows in the lower 30s. Then tomorrow the forecast calls for more of the same. Partly sunny skies rather, mild weather for mid-January in Iowa. Highs around 50 degrees and our temperature at this hour in Des Moines, 31 degrees. Winds out of the northwest at 8 miles an hour. I'll be back with more news in just about a half hour. Stay with us.
On the morning program, President Reagan, Jacqueline Onassis, Bruce Springsteen, the Pope.
Mariette, that's not quite factual.
Oh, you journalists are really hung up on facts.
Well, it's a character flaw, perhaps.
Okay, you want facts? We do have Sophia Loren, Tyne Daly, and Sharon Gless, TV's Cagney and Lacey.
My golly, you've got it.
And lots of surprises I haven't told them about yet. Next on the morning program, huh?
Checking some of the stories that are going to be making news in the day ahead, Jordan's King Hussein is heading for France and Italy to promote his Mideast policy and to seek economic aid. In Washington, the Senate begins consideration of a $20 billion clean water bill that's already been passed by the House. And Senator Edward Kennedy's Labor and Human Resources Committee holds health care hearings today.
Here is a story about a dedicated sportsman. In Miami this weekend, a Peruvian runner realized he was late for a marathon race. He didn't quite have enough time to change, so he got right into the run, still wearing his loafers and slacks and still carrying his duffel bag. The runner finished 3.5 hours after the winner, but ahead of 1,800 other runners. We have to add, though, that he did drop the duffel bag, but not until he was 7 miles into the race.
Under the circumstances, it's probably better than dropping anything else.
I should say.
That is the CBS Morning News for this Monday, January 12th. I'm Forrest Sawyer.
And I'm Faith Daniels. Thanks for joining us. Have a great Monday.
This is CBS.
Replacing the windows in your home is easy when you replace them with Maxitherm Vinyl-Line windows. Maxitherm windows are custom made so that each window fits perfectly in your home. Given the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, Maxitherm Vinyl-Line windows are fully treated and certified for weather tightness and structural strength. Enjoy easy care convenience and energy efficiency of long-lasting, beautiful windows. The perfect way to perk up any room in your home and lower your fuel bills at the same time. Learn more about Maxitherm Vinyl-Line windows. Call
Call today.
In Ottumwa, tune to translator channel 74 for better reception of TV8.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Can I get back to you on that?